Good afternoon. Welcome to the sixth of the 2023 lecture series of the Museo ng Kaalamang Katutubo or MUSCAT. Thank you for making time to be with us this afternoon. MUSCAT likes presenting new things, and this lecture will be a scientific one on Cordillera Rivers by scientist Dr. Francis Magbanua, professor in the University of the Philippines. Dr. Magbanua's areas of specialization are freshwater communities and ecosystem ecology. Dr. Magbanua, with two colleagues, Professor Lem Aragones of UP Diliman's Institute of Environmental Science and Meteorology, and Jean-Claude Renan Saluta of UP's Institute of Biology, University of the Philippines Diliman, wrote PSA on rivers for MUSCAT's forthcoming book on food. But more about Dr. Magbanua later. This afternoon, he will share with us his knowledge about the Cordilleras, as, quote, the only landlocked region in the Philippines, straddled by one of the highest mountain ranges in the country. It is one of the regions in the Philippines with high freshwater potential, feeding numerous river basins, including the mighty Cagayan River. Dr. Magbanua says that streams and rivers play a vital role in honing the culture and traditions in the Cordilleras. But before that, indulge us a few minutes for an introduction to and of the Museo ng Kaalamang Katutubo, MUSCAT, an organization engaged in collecting, studying, and safeguarding material culture, as well as the non-material part, the intangibles. MUSCAT devises and engages in cultural education programs and pursues museum development, with UNILAB as its main benefactor. I am Corazon Alvina. The Museo ng Kaalamang Katutubo's mission and vision are about knowledge, ancestral and contemporary. MUSCAT is committed to rediscovering, recuperating, celebrating, and preserving Philippine inherited and transmitted kaalaman. Sharing knowledge is a good part of MUSCAT's work. We try to create the opportunities within which the public can discover, acknowledge, understand, and appreciate the many layers of Filipino kaalaman. Features of Philippine tangible and intangible culture are remarkable. MUSCAT's programs and projects are inspired by these. A keen custodian of tangible culture, MUSCAT's online presentations, programs, and publications with objects from the collection are conceptualized, mindful of careful research and ethical curatorship, maintaining the integrity of objects within the context particular to the source culture. To ensure correct scholarship, MUSCAT engages and collaborates with respected academics and acknowledged subject matter experts. There are processes that bring forth the most exquisite textile, the handsomest weapon, astonishing basketry. MUSCAT probes for the inspiration behind the creation of such culturally significant and aesthetically sound objects. MUSCAT is sensitive to the physicality and materiality of the objects themselves, to guide the study of processes and technology, and shepherd the conservation strategy for the well-being of the collection. MUSCAT has also operationalized collections management guidelines for registration and conservation. The bonds between humans and their environment and the balance that must be maintained between them receive the utmost regard from MUSCAT, as do the aesthetic integrity and creative philosophy, the outstanding skills, and the commitment of our artists. MUSCAT acknowledges the diwa, spiritual sense and essence in kaalaman. The resolve of the Museo ng Kaalamang Katutubo is to encourage, inspirit, and invigorate pride, admiration, and affection for Kaalamang Katutubo, as indeed for and in all things Philippine. Now, more about Dr. Magbanua. MUSCAT colleague Raymond Santiago will do that for us. Raymond, please.
Thank you, Ms. Cora, and good afternoon. Allow me to introduce our speaker for this session. Dr. Francis Magbanua is a professor at the Institute of Biology, University of the Philippines, Diliman. This year, he was appointed affiliate faculty of the Institute of Environmental Sciences and Meteorology. He is also currently president of the Philippine Society for Freshwater Science since 2018 to next year, 2024. His research focuses on the ecology of freshwater communities and ecosystems, the effect of disturbance and human land use on lakes and rivers, and the development of groundwater and stream health indices. Dr. Magbanua finished his BS in Zoology in 1994 at the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila, his Master's in Environmental Science in 2004 at UP Diliman, and his PhD from the Department of Zoology at the University of Otago in Dunedin, New Zealand in 2012. He also has a certificate in Sustainable Environmental Management from the University of California in Berkeley, USA. He was recently awarded a professorial chair in biology, freshwater ecology, for outstanding teaching and research in UP Diliman. He is recipient of various research grants, invited in numerous speaking engagements, sits in various review and advisory panels, and has co-authored several researches on waterways, aquatic ecosystems, and ecology in local and international journals. In Muscat's tradition of providing its audiences and followers the leading experts of their respective fields, I would now like to turn over the virtual floor to Dr. Francis Magbanua and his topic, the Cordillera Rivers and their ecosystems. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So thank you again for the invitation to share our knowledge about river ecosystems. In today's talk, we'll discuss about river ecosystems of the Cordillera. But before we proceed, I would like to share with you the information about how extensive the water resources are in the Philippines. So here we have about 31,000 hectares of rivers, 200,000 hectares of lakes, 19,000 hectares of reservoirs, and more than 100,000 hectares of wetlands. No, so the Philippines has a lot of water resources. No, particularly it has 421 river basins. No, 18 of which are considered major river basins, and these rivers play a crucial role in our industry, agriculture, particularly the local economy of the basin communities. Okay. The Cordillera watershed is also known as the watershed cradle of northern Luzon, where 85% of the watershed is considered as forest land. No? And of these, 30 are considered as forest reserve. So let me just quote a colleague of mine from the Institute of Biology, Dr. Carmela Española, who studied avian frugivores, or birds that eat or feed on fruits. So she said, traditional agricultural systems in the Cordillera are sustained by the ecological services that watersheds provide, and in turn, watersheds depend on frugivores for forest regeneration. In short, healthy watersheds not only affect water quality in a good way, but also provide greater benefits to the communities of people and wildlife that live in the region. Okay, so masasabi natin na konektado lahat ng mga tao, mga hayop at halaman sa isang watershed. No? So kung anong mangyari sa watershed, magkakaroon din ng malaking epekto sa mga taong naninirahan dito. Okay? So ang watershed or sa Cordillera region ay napakarami. No? So isa sa mga river basins basically consists of different watershed. No? So yung isang river basin sa Cordillera ay tinatawag natin na Agno Buwed. Ayun ang pinakamalaking river basin sa region, located dito sa baba. Let me just show my laser pointer. So ito yun, no? So yung Agno Buwed River Basin, so has a drainage area of about 1,387,700, followed by the Magat River, Chico River, the Amburayan, Nagilian, Aringay River, Abra, this one, and then the Abulog, Apayao River Basin. Okay, so napakaraming watersheds, no, ang nakalagay o makikita dito sa ating region ng Cordillera. So as I mentioned earlier, no, so river basins are composed of different watersheds, and within a watershed, rivers are connected longitudinally, meaning from upstream to downstream, laterally within their surrounding landscapes such as floodplains, and vertically to the ground and atmosphere. No, so these connections are important because whatever activities are being done in the upstream section will have a profound impact in the downstream communities. Okay, so tingnan natin kung ano ba itong connection na tinatawag natin, no? So let's look at the geomorphology of the river, which is divided into three zones: the headwaters, the transfer zone, as well as the depositional zone. So what are the characteristics of each of these zones? So yung headwaters are composed, of course, headwater streams. Now, this is what we call the starting point of a watershed. So, maliit or makitid lang yung ating ilog dito sa headwaters. Kaya yung flow niya rin ay mabilis dahil nga sa mataas na elevation, at of course yung slope ay very steep, no. Dahil nga makitid at maraming mga puno sa gilid, no, sa gilid ng ilog, mababa ang temperatura doon ng tubig. So medyo malamig siya kasi yung araw hindi nakakapasok dito o hindi nasisinagan ng araw itong ating mga ilog. Okay. Because of these characteristics, the trees often provide nutrients, no, to the animals and of course other plant communities live in this particular area. So usually the stream bed is composed of bedrocks, as you can see in the picture below, and then boulders, cobbles, and of course gravel. Okay, so they say that intact, healthy watersheds, intact, healthy headwater streams are essential to maintaining water quality. Okay, for the transfer zone or transition zone, basically the headwater streams that merge in this section form a middle reaches or midstreams. These streams are wider compared to the headwaters, and hence more sunlight gets to the water. So yung stream beds are more variable, no? So they also have pebbles, cobbles, gravels, no, because of the presence of these pools, ripples, and runs, microhabitats. Okay, usually mga gamit dun sa mga surrounding areas ng watershed ay residential, urban, and agricultural, no. So dun makikita sa transition zone itong mga iba-ibang land use types. And meron din mga recreational areas such as fishing, small watercraft boating, and swimming. So dito maraming mga turista nagpupunta para ma-experience at iba-ibang mga recreational activities. And then finally, the zone 3 or the deposition zone, when our middle reach streams merge, they form this large river na. So malalaking ilog na ang makikita natin dito sa depositional zone, no? So they have again, they are wider compared to your middle stream reach. And because of their relatively low elevation gradient, large rivers flow more slowly. And this wider bank and large volume of water, the biological communities is somehow similar to a lake ecosystem na. Okay. In this section of the river, it is also important in terms of transportation. No? Also support commercial fisheries, sport fishing, and also recreational boating. Okay, so in the Cordillera Administrative Region, the Mount Data National Reserve has been reported or recorded to support headwaters of the 5 major rivers. No? Sa background, makikita nyo yung Mount Data National Reserve. No? So itong National Reserve, again, sinusuportahan yung 5 headwaters. Like yun sa Chico River. So yung Chico River daw ay dumadaan sa Mountain Province papuntang Kalinga, tapos diretso siya ng Cagayan Province, and then babagsak doon sa Rio Grande de Cagayan. Susunod naman yung Ahin River. So it flows eastward from Mount Data through the province of Ifugao, and it is joined by the Ibulao River before emptying into Magat River. No? So ito yung nasa border ng Ifugao, Isabela provinces. And susunod naman ay ang Abra River. So it is located in the westward part of the region. So flows westward, descends to Ilocos Sur, and then flows to the province of Abra, and then exits and cuts through Ilocos Sur before emptying to the South China Sea. The fourth one is the Aburayan River. No? So it flows southwestward and traverses western Benguet, drains into La Union, and then it is fed by Nagilian and Aringay River before emptying to the South China Sea. Okay, and finally the Agno River, which flows southward of Mount Data and through the eastern side of Benguet, and then it drains into the Pangasinan. Okay, so ito yung 5 headwaters na sinusuportahan ng Mount Data. So malaki at marami ding mga organisms na makikita rito na ipapakita natin mamaya, lalong-lalo na yung mga isda at mga invertebrates, no, nakikita dito. Okay, pero itong mga pagbabago sa geomorphology ng river system, no, may corresponding impact or changes in the community of organisms present in the section of the river. So basically, these physical characteristics dictate the types of organisms that can inhabit a stream ecosystem. And this is clearly illustrated in what we call in river ecology as the river continuum concept. So here, Professor Robin Banot and colleague reported that the physical variables within a river system from headwaters to the mouth present a continuous gradient of physical conditions. Now, so there is a shift in the community composition of your producer and consumers given the characteristics of particular reach in the river ecosystem. So basically, kapag iba ang characteristics ng isang river, nagbabago din ang mga klase ng organisms na makikita dito sa section na river. So from headwater going to the downstream section, which is the river mouth. So kanina nakita natin yung headwater zone, the transition or transfer zone, and then the depositional zone. So may corresponding changes din sa organism. Ito yung gaya ng nabanggit natin kanina, dahil nga limited yung araw na pumapasok or nakikita dito sa ilog sa headwaters, walang gaanong algae na makikita dito sa area na to. Ang nagiging source ng energy ng mga organism ay yung mga natutuyong dahon at mga logs, no, doon sa ilog. So aquatic insects that can break down these leaves and woody material are commonly supported in this particular area or section of the river. Yung susunod na part naman ng river, again, yung ating transition or transfer zone, ito yung nasa middle part na, no? Ang characteristics naman nito ay yung again, medyo mas malaki ang stream width, nakaka-penetrate na ang araw, kaya meron ka ng mga halaman at mga lumot, no, na tumutubo dito sa gitna ng parte ng ilog, no. So most of the organisms like insects feed on these algae and living plants, no. And of course, larger streams support a greater diversity of invertebrates and fish in this area. And yung lower reaches, ito na yung nasa downstream section. Usually, malalapad na talaga ito, katulad ng example sa NCR o National Capital Region, yung Pasig River. So, classified as stream order 7 or 8 na yan. So, ito, yung organic matter coming from the surrounding land is no longer or insignificant in comparison to the volume of the water kasi masyado nang marami yung tubig, no. Makikita natin dito yung iba-ibang mga phytoplankton, zooplankton na sila na ang pinaka-base or ng food base, no, ng mga organism na makikita kumpara dun sa midstream or mid-reaches na yung mga algae at mga aquatic plants pa ang pinaka base ng food ecosystem, ng food system sa ilog, no. So fishes which are considered omnivores, or ibig sabihin kumakain ng both plants and animal materials as well as plankton feeders, can be found in this section. Okay? So yan yung mga iba-ibang characteristics ng ilog mula sa headwaters pababa dun sa river mount o malapit na sa coast. So meron na rin pag-aaral na nagawa dito sa Cordillera. Dalawa dito ay yung sa Amburayan River at saka sa Ibulao River, no. So Garcia et al. In 2018 recorded 9 fish species, 4 crustaceans, and 1 snail species, no. And also found introduced species of fish in our river system, no. So these are the tilapia and the mosquito fish or the Gambusia affinis, no. In Ibulao River naman, Tauli and colleagues reported 11 of 18 fish are introduced species, no. So we'll look into these different fishes in the next slides. So ito yung mga freshwater macroinvertebrates that can be found in both river systems. So yung udang, tangad, ito yung mga hipon na tinatawag natin dito sa Tagalog, no. So gaki and agudong naman yung mga yung crab, yung gaki, yung agudong, yung mga kuhol o yung mga suso na tinatawag din natin dito. Next slide ay mga isda naman na native sa atin, no, particularly in these two river systems, no, yung igat and yung biya. Okay, so yung biya, maraming biya ang native dito sa lugar nito. In fact, 6 yung na-report nung dalawang studies, no. So ito yung dalawa na nasa baba at ito yung iba pang mga klase ng biya na makikita dito sa dalawang ilog na to. Okay? So meron din tayo endemic or nakikita lang din dito sa area na ito, no? So endemic sa buong Pilipinas. So itong Leopteropon plumbeus o tinatawag nating ayungin, Plicophilus megantensis, so hito, at saka itong half-beak, no, Sinarcopterus philippinus, no. Pero dito sa tatlong endemic fish na ito, yung dalawa ay considered na vulnerable. So basically, their population size is fewer than 1,000 individuals. So base ito sa pag-aaral ng IUCN Red List. Okay? Meron din namang mga introduced species o mga fish species na hindi talaga native or hindi talaga nagmula dito sa atin. No? So these are carps, snakehead or dalag, catfishes or hito. So these are some of the fishes that were introduced in these two river systems, no, in the Cordillera. So they are not considered, or they are not harmful to humans, but they are considered as pests, no, in other areas. So ito din po yung mga iba pang mga endemic fishes na makikita sa atin ilog sa Cordillera. So yung mga mosquito fish, susay, tilapia, and of course yung isang klase ng biyan na introduced din po. So hindi lang sa tubig maraman or hindi lang sa katubigan or sa ilog makikita ang iba-ibang mga halaman at hayop, no. Meron din tayong mataas na biodiversity sa terrestrial ecosystem. So based on the study by Jess Moss et al. In 2005. So they reported about 51 species of amphibians and reptiles, no, including these two frogs, Sanguirana igorata and Limnosnectis macrocephalus. No, so these frogs, they prefer less disturbed streams. So masasabi natin na kapag nakita natin itong dalawang palaka na to sa isang ilog sa Cordillera, ang ibig sabihin ay maganda ang tubig dito. Okay? So in 2016 study by Ricard and colleagues in Mount Amurao in Mountain Province, they also reported this particular cloud rat, no? So three slender-tailed gigantic cloud rats. Isa rin sa pinagmamalaki ng Cordillera ay yung kanilang mossy forest, no? Which is estimated to cover around 240,700 hectares, no? Or about 11% of the total land area. This type of forest is very important because it provides water and prevent mountain erosion, no, as reported by Banwa in 2011. No. So while this mossy forest is already fragmented, they still found about 37 tree species in the Cordillera region. Okay. So mataas po ang biodiversity sa Cordillera Autonomous Region sa terrestrial at sa aquatic ecosystems. Okay. So makikita din natin yung kahalagahan ng tubig sa mga tao ng Ifugao, no? So of course yung isang magandang halimbawa nga ay yung Banawi Rice Terraces, no, na kung saan talaga nakasalalay o na nakikita ng kanilang pagkonekta sa tubig, no, sa water, sa pamagitan ng pagtatanim, no. So marami din silang mga pagkain na gumagamit din or ng mga freshwater resources, no, tulad nitong tengba. Ito ay isang mix of rice paste, no, fermented rice paste and freshwater crab, no. So dito ang ginagawa nila, so yun, the crabs are thoroughly salted before being put in an earthen container, no. So after 24 hours, these salted crabs are combined with finely ground white rice and plenty of fresh water. No? And then they, again, covered it, the earthenware, and leave it for about 3 weeks. No? Pagkatapos nun, yun, pwede na nilang iserve as part of their side dish, no, sa mga, or ihalo sa iba nilang mga lutuin sa Cordillera. Isa din dito yung sigtim or sigtiman, no, na ginagawa din nila, ka, na gamit ang rice wine or tapay. So, yung tape, hindi lang iniinom, pero ginagamit din nila sa pagluluto nila ng iba't ibang putahe sa Cordillera. Okay? So, dito talagang makikita natin na ang mga Ifugao people are parang reliant, no, heavily reliant on freshwater resources in the Cordillera Mountains. So, pero there are also threats, no? There are threats to the biodiversity of the Cordillera as well as to the indigenous culture. And these are just some of the threats, no? The ongoing deforestation, mining industry, dams, and of course climate change. No, so I think this is not particular to the Cordillera. I think in general, no, in the Philippines as well as in the other countries, these are major threats affecting the freshwater ecosystems, and of course the terrestrial ecosystems in general. So what do we need to do? So we need to conserve and protect the forests and rivers of the Cordilleras in order to preserve this biodiversity, which we have seen earlier. No? So we need to restore the denuded forest. So we need to understand the biodiversity and their ecology in the Cordillera Mountains. One practice or a good example of the local indigenous practice is what you call the Muyong system. No? So the Muyong system, they already, it's what we call indigenous communities are vital for successful conservation and protection initiatives. Basically, the Muyong system, these are where the local communities manage their particular lot. No, they already identify trees or tree species that can like support or retain water and protect erosion and other activities that are beneficial to the communities in the region. No? So, yun yung maganda siguro ituloy at ituro din, no? Siguro hindi lang sa communities ng Cordillera, siguro sa ibang communities din sa Pilipinas. And we also need to implement the law enforcement and regulations, particularly in the mining operations and other industries being established in the Cordillera regions. It is also equally important that we seek cooperation from the indigenous peoples, local communities, government units, and private institutions in order to conserve and protect the forest, no, and river systems of the region. So mahalaga ito para mas lalo nating mapanatili, no, yung ating mga biodiversity dito sa ating lugar. And of course, ayan, so maraming salamat sa Muscat o Museo ng Kaalamang Katutubo, lalong-lalo na kay Ma'am Cora Albina sa pag-imbita sa amin sa pagsulat ng essay about river ecosystems of Cordillera, and also for giving us this opportunity to share our knowledge about river ecosystems. And of course, to my co-authors and colleague, no, Renan Saluta and Sir Lem Aragones. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer your questions or clarify some issues and concerns. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Doc.
Good afternoon po.
Doc, Raymond Santiago. Ako yung gumawa ng introduction.
Okay.
Thank you for a most informative and fascinating lecture. This is actually the first time that I've encountered a lecture specific to river systems or river systems of the Cordillera. My bad, but my fault entirely also. Thank you for giving Muscat the opportunity to hear out the lecture. Yeah. Doc, without further ado, I'd like to proceed with the question and answer. We have some clarifications that were posted to us.
Sure.
You can proceed. But we would like to encourage our listeners to post questions and inquiries and clarifications just by commenting in the Facebook page of the session. Yeah. Doc, simulan ko na, Doc.
Sige po.
Doc, there was a question. Where do the waters from the headwaters section come from?
Yeah. Nice. That's a good question. Basically, these waters came from a spring. So basically, groundwater that are lumalabas sa spring water eventually. Kaya that's why it's very narrow and it's cold because it came from a groundwater. No? So ganun ang source. So it is also important to protect them, the watershed itself, because they retain water nga. No? So that's why in the Ifugao region, the practice of buyong is very important because that serves as your parang water retention. No? So because water is important in their everyday life, so they need to protect that section in that because it's basically forested. No, walang gaanong human activities in the area. So yes, the source comes from the spring, which originated from the groundwater.
Okay, so the springs, Doc, come from the mountains. Basically, yung mga ulan, palaging umuulan doon sa taas eh. So, yung mga ulan doon, tapos bababa sila sa lupa. Okay.
Yes, pa.
Bababa sila sa kapatagan. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Doc, another clarification. What are frugivores?
Frugivores. Opo.
Frugivores.
Frugivores basically fruits, no? Fruits. Tapos yung vorium, they feed on fruits. So we have birds and mammals. Yung mammals, these are your bats, no? Yung mga paniki natin. Some of our bats and birds, they feed on fruits, no? We have yung, I'm not sure yung Tagalog, yung figs. Yung mga yung mga figs na nasa tabing ilog or somewhere near the water source. So these are some of the fruits that they feed on. So frugivores, they basically dependent on the fruits, no. So if they don't have, like for in a watershed, no, kapag wala na yung mga fruit bearing trees, nababawasan din. So may negative effect din sa ating wildlife, no, sa ating avian community.
Okay. Doc, you mentioned several times that there were alien species that were introduced to the river systems. Yun, point of clarification. Sinong nag-introduce, Doc? Tapos saan sila galing? I suppose yung follow through doon, bakit sila inintroduce?
Okay. So, medyo mahirap sagutin, ano? Basically, it's part of the government program kasi given that we would like to increase production of fisheries, no, across the country. Yes. So they tried to introduce, the intention was good naman, no, that they want to introduce fish because, fish is one of the protein source of our local communities, no. So very cheap yan compared to your other meat na source. So that's the reason why. In other cases, introduction could be accidental because some of these fishes used to be part of the parang ornamental aquarium hobbies, parang part of their hobby, no, yung mga ornamental fishes na yun. So that's why somehow they got introduced accidentally, siguro through washing off of their aquaria, then eventually got released into the river systems. But the most interesting part is the Gambusia affinis, which is mosquito fish. Nga. I think it way back in the early 1940s, 50s, no, it was introduced to control mosquito in general, no. Unfortunately, because it has been reported as a biological control for mosquito, but well, because there's no what they call that predator for that particular fish, and there's an open niche or malaking area para sa mga introduced species, they were able to reproduce more and proliferate in other areas, not only in the Cordillera but in other water bodies in the country as well.
Okay. Doc, delikado yung ganon, di ba? Ibig sabihin, and especially coming from government, what kind of thinking or studies were done to support or endorse a measure like that? I mean, like ngayon sa Quezon City, the mayor is endorsing a move to put frogs in the waterways para tumulong do sa pag-attack sa mga mosquito ng laban sa dengue. I mean, are these backed with studies, actual studies that are supposed to support them?
Actually, I've seen the news, no, na nakita ko yung balita nga, no, may na-introduce na rin ng mga palaka in some steros or waterways in the city, no. But I have not seen any basis for that. In fact, there are native aquatic insects that feed on these mosquitoes, no. So meron tayong sarili nating species na pwedeng gamitin para kainin itong mga mosquito. Siguro yun lang yung kailangang aralin kung paano paparamihin para may distribute din natin kung saan lugar na pwede silang magamit pag-control ng mosquito population.
Okay. Pero yung ginawa sa Cordillera, Doc, for food, greater production of resources.
Yes po.
Okay. Doc, another question.
Pero sir Raymond, idagdag ko lang din. But recently, there is a program, the government has this program, Balik Sigla sa Ilog at Lawa, or BASIL, which is under the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. They are now developing, or they have developed systems to propagate native species, and these native species are now being introduced or reintroduced to our river system. So, which is good. So it's a good step towards introducing local fish for sustenance, no, for as a source of protein, and at the same time increasing the local biodiversity of our river systems.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Doc. Doc, we have another clarification question. Yung gaki, which is crab, you mentioned that earlier. Is this kangkanay or a bontok term?
I have to check. Parang kangkanay daw po yun eh. Pero I still have to check yung yung terminology po, yung specific nila. Sorry po, hindi ko siya hindi ko siya masagot.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Doc. Doc, I follow through question. How does heavy water affect the headwaters?
Oh, yes. So if the headwaters are intact in terms of the forest and trees presence of the forest, no, so heavy rainfall will be able to so the presence of these trees and other plants, no, vegetation will control infiltrate, rather control this flow, or that will cause flooding, no, sa lower communities. So, and this will also increase the absorption of our water in the groundwater sa water table natin. So it really boils down in terms of protecting the forest, no, kasi kung walang forest, wala rin tayong tubig. So kaya nga tinatawag nilang watershed, no, it's a catchment of water through the health of your forest ecosystem.
Doc, this is one question. Fascinating. Also, my first time to hear about these. How does the El Nino affect the river system?
Okay, so the El Nino, during the El Nino kasi you'll have drought or long dry spell, no. So basically in some areas you will have less precipitation or mas mahina ang ulan natin, no. So definitely in the river system you'll have sections that have no water, or the water level in that particular river systems are low, mababa, no. So medyo manipis na lang, wala ka ng gaanong tubig. So eventually if this dry spell prolongs, then eventually you'll have areas on the river mismo na wala na talagang tubig, or certain areas na meron lang pool or parang paddle, no? Ano ba tawag dito? Yung meron lang kasi may hukay, so naipon lang yung tubig. But eventually, in some cases, you don't have water at all, no? Kasi mababa na yung water table mo, so hindi na lumalabas at wala ng tubig, hindi na siya lalabas pa dun sa surface, dun sa stream bed mo, so hindi na apaw. So ganun yung nangyayari.
Okay. Doc, another comment. It was mentioned that the rocks near the headwaters are bigger and they become smaller as the river flows. So the smaller stones now, the smaller the stones means that the farther they are from the headwaters? Ganun ba yun, Doc?
Kasi remember yung sa taas talaga, bedrock, no? So kung makikita nyo yung stream bed, yung pinaka floor o ng river natin, parang yung bato talaga, no? Doon talaga umaano. So para siyang ano ba tawag mo rito? Limestone, no? Na nasa taas, no? Yung tubig dumadaloy sa ibabaw ng bato. But of course, through weathering, na unti-unting natatapyasan, natatanggal. So you have different particle size in the headwaters. But as you move further downstream, lumiliit yung bato mo. Kaya pagdating sa coastal areas, sa riverine areas, you'll have fine sand, minsan nga clay, and eventually yung mga muddy na yung area, no, kasi ganun talaga. So as you move further downstream, from upstream to downstream, nagbabago din yung bato, yung size ng mga bato na makikita mo sa downstream, no. Of course, sometimes sasabihin nila, pero merong boulders na malaki na nandun sa baba or nandun sa gitna na ng ilog. Of course, may mga events, no, may mga flash flood. So yung mga boulders na malaki gumulong pababa na rin, no? So eventually na they landed that. Pero in terms of when you're going to assess it in terms of coverage, hindi naman siya ganun kalaki, parang mga less than 5% lang ng ganung particle size ang makikita mo na doon sa area. Majority are smaller in size in the downstream section.
Habang hinihintay natin si Sir Raymond, may isa pang question. Sir Raymond, sorry ako na magtatanong. What is the typical depth of rivers in the Cordilleras usually?
Cordilleras. So, sa headwaters usually it's around parang less than half a meter sa headwaters, or even ankle deep lang. So basically a few meters. But if you move towards the middle, so mga 1 meter, and then eventually it will be depth deeper, or about 2 meters and above or more, no, as you move downstream. So sa taas mababa lang, no. Depende din sa section, but in the headwaters, basically these are really very shallow water bodies.
Okay. So we have another question po from Miss Maria Rodora Agustin. Medyo mahaba to, sir. So sorry.
Sige po.
Ang
Go
mga
ahead.
ilog po ba sa bandang ibaba ng stream, mas recommendable po ba na mga tabi or baybay na ilog ay walang nakatirang tao? Ang mga activity po ba ng mga tao, bunga ng kanilang movement o ng activity, maaapektuhan ang mga ilog o ecosystem ng mga ilog? Yun daw po.
Okay. So yung unang tanong, yung sa baybay, no, or dun sa coastal areas, so dapat ba may mga tao or hindi dapat tinitirahan? Tama ba? Nakuha ko ba yung question yan? So ideally, by law kasi, we have this what we call 20-meter easement, no? Parang from the bank. So whether it's left bank or right bank, no, from the bank, you have the 20-meter space that is safe for human activities. No, wala siya dapat safe for wala siyang human activities, so that when changes in terms of water level nag-increase due to like typhoon or flooding event, so it will not affect then the communities, so ideally, and also because the characteristics of rivers changes, no. If you notice, in some years the main channel is this wide, and then eventually it narrows to, let's say, a few meters, but there's another channel on the left side, which is about 1 meter, 2 meters as well. So nagkakaroon ng shift po ng movement, no, ang river systems natin depende dun sa amount of or volume of water being discharged from the headwater, no. So to be safe, it is discouraged, no, people are discouraged to establish their homes or houses in beside the river system, no. So, and also going back to the 20-meter easement from the bank, it also prevents introduction. For example, if the surrounding area is an agricultural land, no, so there's always enough space for, in case of heavy rainfall, you have surface runoff, then all of these chemicals, if they are using pesticides in their agricultural system, then it will have it will minimize introduction directly to the water bodies kasi meron ka pang 20 meters, no, at least ma-reabsorb ulit itong mga water containing contaminants and also sediments, no. So hindi siya kaagad dediretso, or at least mababawasan yung pollution na pupunta sa ilog natin kasi meron ka pang bank na hopefully may mga puno din to, hindi lang siya mga damo, no. So ganun po yung principle ng 20 meters na easement from the bank sa left side as well as sa right side po.
Okay. Humingi po ako ng pasensya, malakas yung ulan. So narinig ko po yung thunder. So may follow-up question lang po ulit si Miss Maria. Ano daw po yung maaaring i-consider sa pag-aaral ng mga ilog sa mga lokalidad kung magsasagawa daw siya ng historical study?
Okay, good question. So historical studies in terms of yung formation ng river system, so yung topography, no, yung geology ng system. So kasi nga gaya ng sabi natin, there are decades na yung makikita mo historically yung images. I'm not sure if it's already available na may mga images na naman from previous years or decades, makikita mo yung iba yung nasa ibang lugar, yung ilog. Tapos, because of human activities, nagkaroon na ng easement yung riverbank, nagkaroon na riprap. So, nagbago na rin yung formation or yung shape ng river system. So, pwede mo siyang aralin yung prior to human or siguro low community like yung ano ba tayo human population index, so mababa pa, so mga 1900s as you move towards yung parang yung timeline, then makikita mo rin kung ano yung nangyayari sa ilog natin, ano yung hugis niya, yung tubig, yung volume ng water na present doon sa ilog. I'm not sure kung meron na ring diversity ng mga fishes and invertebrates, no? But Dr. Albert Here, who was the director of the Bureau of Science before the World War II, no? I think he was able to document and record some of the Philippine fishes, no? So I think that could also be a good basis whether these fishes that were reported earlier are still present in these river systems, no? Baka nga hindi na or baka meron pa, so hindi natin din alam, no? Kasi as I mentioned earlier, no, compared to marine environment and the terrestrial environment, freshwater ecosystems are least studied, no? Lately na lang nabibigyan ng pansin ang pag-aaral ng ating mga ilog at lawa. So, isang magandang aspeto din yun na kailangan nating aralin.
Okay po. Nandiyan na si Sir Raymond. Sir Raymond, are you there?
Yes, sorry. Nag-fluctuate yung signal.
Okay.
Open cam, sir.
Okay. Sorry, Doc. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Doc, if I can continue, sorry.
Sige po.
There's a question. Can rivers change their courses or their directions?
Yes. As I think I mentioned that earlier, no, na nagbabago talaga. Kaya nga yung mga mga nagde-develop within this river system, so depending on the volume of the water, it will definitely change, no, by gravity. It will definitely change its direction and of course the shape of the river systems, no. So kaya kailangan natin din umiwas or at least wag magtayo ng anumang mga establishment immediately dun sa edge nung river system. Apa.
Okay. Doc, another question. How do you know if a river is healthy? Are there ways to reverse an unhealthy river back to health? Yeah.
Okay. So that's a good question. That's what we're trying to do right now, no? So how do you know if a river is healthy, no? So yun yung ginagawa namin ang base sa aming pag-aaral, no. Kaya meron kaming dine-develop na health index, no. Tinatawag namin siyang biotic index. Ito yung magsasabi sa atin kung ano ang status o kondisyon ng isang river system. Ito ay nakabase sa mga organism na present dito sa isang ilog, no. So meron tayong mga organism, for example, yung mga invertebrates, meron yang mga kapasidad na makatolerate ng mga disturbance or pollution. Meron din namang mga organism na invertebrates na very sensitive sila, hindi nila kaya yung mga kahit na minimal na disturbance, kunyari may mga siltation, erosion.
So ang threshold nila.
So mababa ang threshold nila. Kaya sila yung unang nawawala. So masasabi mo ang isang ilog kapag nandoon ang mga sensitive species na tinatawag, then masasabi natin maganda or of good water quality. Ngayon, kapag ang isang ilog ay nado-dominate ng isang organism na tolerant, so sabihin natin yung mga mosquito or yung chironomid, no? Ito yung isang kalahi ng mga langaw or ng mga flies, dipteran. So sila, kapag sila makikita, at saka yung mga ano ba tawag dito, yung mga bulate, yung mga oligocete na makikita mo lang, sila lang ang pinakamarami doon sa isang lugar, masasabi mo na talagang polluted na, no? Kasi they prefer sediment area or sediment laden area. So yun yung ginagawa namin na indicator para ma-establish natin kung ang isang ilog ba talaga ay maganda. Tapos syempre kung maganda, i-maintain natin. Kung hindi, yung sa pangalawang tanong, paano natin siya ma-rehabilitate? So ang tawag dito ay restoration ecology. So ring restoration ecology will try to parang return or bring back the river system into its original state. Of course, hindi na talaga yung original as in yung bago pa nangyari. No? Of course, medyo at least close to that original state. So paano ba yon? Yung present pa din yung mga organism na dati nating nakikita at marami rin siyang mga biodiversity na present. No? Ang mga activities or strategy, so again, natural ang hindi ka magagawa ng riprapping sa gilid, hindi siya ganoon kasi nga malaki rin tulong ang naibibigay ng iyong riparian vegetation o yung mga halaman na nasa gilid So kasi yung mga alam nyo ba, ang mga tutubi, yung mga overhanging vegetation, yung mga nakalawit na dahon, mga sanga ng halaman malapit sa ilog, doon sila kumakapit yung mga tutube at para mangitlog. So malaki ang silbi nitong mga halaman na ito. So isa yan sa mga strategy para manumbalik o maibalik yung natural communities dito sa ating mga ilog. So yun, dapat yung maganda yung vegetation, at the same time present yung mga iba-ibang tinatawag nating microhabitats. Ano ba itong mga microhabitats? May mga organism kasi na mas prefer nila yung mababato, tapos malakas yung agos kasi meron silang gills sa kanilang abdomen. May mga ano ba tawag mo, hasang sa may mga gills din ang mga insects. Ito yung mga aquatic insects, no? So kailangan nilang huminga. So, kailangan yung tubig dumadaloy sa katawan nila kasi nandun yung gills nila. So, mas prepared nila yon. Meron namang iba, mas gusto nila yung mga nabubulok na mga dahon. Yung napaliwanag ko nga kanina, yung source of energy nila, yung mga nahuhulog na dahon mula sa puno sa gilid ng ilog. No? So, may mga ganun din. So, ito yung mga microhabitats at saka yung iba malalalim, mas gusto nila malalim. So, yun yung mga iba-ibang microhabitats na present sa isang ilog. Masasabi natin unti-unting manunumbalik yung mga organism. At ganun din yung condition ng iyong ilog. Masasabi mo na na-restore mo na. At the same time, kung mga matataas nga, maganda yung quality, dapat i-maintain. Dapat wag nating pabayaang masira ito sa mga bagay na ginagawa natin.
Okay. Doc, curious lang ako, parts of your talk dealt with the threats.
Yes, sir.
Of, and then you mentioned the effects of a disturbed water source. Doc, pero parang ano na ang condition ngayon ng riverways dun sa or river beds or river channels dun sa Cordillera? Have they seen a fair amount of both disturbance, maybe destruction in the past decade or so? Yeah.
Magandang tanong po yan. Ano po? Yung mga base po sa pag-aaral, ano po? Yung mga ilog naman po na merong of course deforestation, apektado po talaga. So meron pong mga ilog sa Cordillera din na nagiging silted na po, no? Kasi nga yung deforestation, so meron ka soil erosion and then eventually sedimentation sa ilog. Doon po unfortunately nagiging hindi na po siya magandang parang it's an eyesore na po, no? Sa patingin pa lang. Pero kung titingnan din natin yung water quality, bumababa din po yung kalidad ng tubig natin. So hindi na rin po siya magamit, no, para sa domestic in terms of drinking water. Pang ano na lang po siya, parang kung ano man panghugas, kung pandilig no ng mga alam. So may mga reports na din po na makikita natin, at kapag ang isang ilog po ay malapit din sa residential area, ibang usapin naman din po. May mga malaki din po ang effect nito sa ating mga biological communities, na ating mga isda, mga insekto, mga crabs, no. So ito po ang mga nakikita din, hindi lang din sa Cordillera, no. Ito po ay reported na rin sa mga international symposium at sa mga publications, na residential ang malaking contributor sa pagbagsak o pagbaba ng kwalidad ng isang ilog. Susunod po rito ay ang agrikultura, lalo na yung mga gumagamit ng mga pestisido at mga fertilizer, at susunod din po yung of course yung forest, yung deforestation, no, eventually, no. Ibang usapin naman po kasi ang dam, ang establishment ng dam, talagang malaking, ayun po talaga, malaking epekto ang tatamaan, hindi lang po sa river system, kundi yung mga livelihood din ng ating mga local communities, apektado din po.
Okay. Pero yun nga, Doc, you confirm that malaki ang social impact ng interference ng mga tao, ng mga communities sa para mabago, maging unhealthy yung mga rivers.
Opo. Malaki po ang epekto ng mga ginagawa natin sa pang-araw-araw, na hindi naman nating parang alam natin hindi siya directly related, pero ang eventually po babagsak sa ilog lahat ng mga ginagawa natin, no, epekto.
Doc, I can imagine na nangyayari ito dun sa mga areas na you mentioned earlier, yung transfer sites.
Mm-hmm.
Pero yung headwaters, nangyayari din ba yun, Doc? Meron bang threats sa headwaters ng Cordillera? Kasi parang ang pakiramdam ko, napakahalaga nun na source ng buong ilog.
Yung Minahan po kasi, ang unang-una ay nandun po yun sa tuktok talaga. Kasi yung mga limestones, yung mga iba pang mga minerals natin ay nandun po sa taas, dahil sila po talaga yung mataas ang resources, no, ng minahan. So yun po ang malaking epekto, na kapag nangyari po yun, minina po yung ating headwaters, magkakaroon po talaga ng malaking negative impact dun sa ating transfer zone, and then eventually the depositional zone.
Okay. So, controversial yung So, hindi na ako, I will not broadly. Babaguhin ko na, Doc, yung tanong. Meron magtanong dito, in your studies, did you find any traces or proof of crocodiles in the Cordilleras? And are there indications that there were any crocodiles, or the Cordillera rivers were able to house crocodiles?
Okay po. That's an interesting question, opo. Kasi nga po dun sa bandang Cagayan po, 'di ba, may crocodiles po doon. So, and since connected po ang river system natin from the Cagayan area going to the Cordillera, wala pa po kaming na-encounter na mga sightings or mga traces ng mga buhaya, mga crocodiles doon sa ating sites, no, but that would be a very interesting study. And also historically, kung meron din talagang na record na doon at bakit sila nawala, so maganda rin po nating malaman. Pero sa ngayon po, wala pa po kaming evidence na magsasabi na meron po doon, or wala pa po kaming nakikita.
Okay. Doc, another question. You mentioned the Muyong concept. Is the Muyong concept an indigenous contrivance or arrangement, much like halimbawa they have peace packs, the Budong,
Apo.
I am thinking na is the Muyong something that the elders of certain communities or representatives of collegial representatives of the communities came together to establish an effort to assist their environment. Ganun po ba yun? Or
Yes,
is this
sir.
something aided by a social worker to mobilize support and advocacy for?
Actually, sir, it is an IP practice, no? So it's an indigenous practice. Yung mga minana ng isang parang lineage naman po, no? So minana niya isang lot or wood lot. So ito po yung actually wala naman silang title daw na pinanghahawakan, but because of recognition lang na sa kanila yung lupa, ancestral domain, so recognize po ng tribal community, alam po nila naman yung parang ninuno nila ito, so sa kanila ito. So yun po ang kanilang pinagbasihan, at dito po sa Muyong system, ito po yung area na talagang masasabi natin na punong-puno ng mga puno, magaganda yung lugar. So ito po kasi yung pinaka-major source nila ng tubig na link din naman sa kanilang farming katulad nung sa Banawe Rice Terraces, di ba po? At the same time, yung settlement, kasi dito rin kukuha ng tubig para gamitin sa pang-araw-araw na gawain. So ito po talaga ay IP, parang management nila ng isang traditional knowledge, no, traditional form of management of a natural resource. Ngayon po ginagamit na rin po siya sa forestry as a form of watershed rehabilitation or forest management, at the same time po sa agroforestry, kasi makikita nyo po since may mga spaces pa po ito na pwede naman tamnan ng mga ibang fruit trees. So na fruit trees din na nakaka-retain din ng water na pwede nilang gamitin, so as a part of their livelihood or subsistence dun sa area. So ginagamit na rin po siya, in fact, nire-recommend na po siya ng FAO or Food and Agriculture Organization ng United Nations as a best management practices or as an ANR or assisted natural regeneration ng isang area. So maganda rin po ito na ipalaganap natin sa ibang lugar, hindi lang po dito sa Cordillera, na isang sistema na mula sa atin na pwedeng protektahan at pagyamanin ang isang kagubatan sa pamamagitan nga ito ng local indigenous knowledge.
So, parang response model na siya, Doc.
Yes.
Na-establish na siya bilang. Doc, anong ethno-linguistic group ang nag-pioneer or ang dito sa Muyong?
Yun ang, sorry, hindi ko siya, yun yung medyo, yung background ko kasi natural science.
I just had to ask.
So, but that's good, no? So hindi ko na din na natignan yung aspeto na yun. But it's really a good question kung saan galing, no? Is it from the Ifugao, Mountain Province,
Bontoc
or
Bontoc?
Opo. Magandang tignan nga natin yun, ano. Pero sa ngayon hindi ko po masasagot. Siguro po pwede yung ating mga kasama sa mga DNR, no, lalong-lalo na sa Cordillera region, ang makakaalam kung ano ba yung history, kung ano po ba, saan po nanggaling itong Muyong. Pero ang tawag, yung word po kasi, yung Muyong itself, it means daw po ay forest or woodlot. So yun daw po yung parang translation nung salitang Muyong.
Okay. We have a question closer to home, Doc, from Chita Gatbunton. Dito sa Kamaynilaan, marami ng estero ang namatay at natuyuan ng mga tinayuan ng mga gusali. Ano bang pwedeng gawin daw para buhayin itong mga estero at saka mga daanan ng tubig na ito? Yun.
Maganda pong tanong po yan, ano. Ito po mga estero natin, alam po natin na tinambakan na ng basura, naging tirahan na ng ating mga ibang kababayan natin. So siguro po yun, unang-una po kasi kailangan po natin siguro ma-address yung sources ng mga pollution or yung mga contaminants, kung ano man, solid waste. So kailangan talagang makita natin kung saan ang nagmumula ito at kung kayang ipahinto, ipatigil, or ma-minimize yung impact nito. Mas maganda pong makakatulong po ito para mas lalo natin maibalik, no, yung ma-restore yung waterways natin sa Metro Manila. Aside kasi po kung yung ginagawa lang po natin yung, of course maganda rin po yun, yung dredging, pag-alis ng basura, so para lang po mas maganda yung daloy ng tubig. Pero kung hindi po talaga natin ma-address yung pinaka-root cause, yung pagtatapon ng basura, yung mga sludge or yung mga effluent na nanggagaling sa kung saan-saan na pina-flush nila lalo na kapag malakas ang ulan. So kapag hindi po natin na-address 'yun, sa palagay ko po baliwala po yung paglilinis natin ng ilog ng dredging. Although malaking tulong ito kasi po medyo mababawasan yung pagbaha. Pero sa ngayon po naramdaman naman natin ilang araw pa lang umuulan, baha na po ang Kamaynilaan, po. So siguro po 'yun yung magandang malaman kung saan po talaga nagmumula at 'yun ang ating tutukan at gawan ng paraan para mabawasan o mahinto o nang sa gayon yung ating mga mga ginagawang investment hindi rin po masayang, no, para lalo pa nating mapaayos itong mga estero natin dito sa Maynila.
Doc, on the side, Doc, question, yung bang dredging, what is your take? Kasi hindi lang ito ginagawa dito sa Metro Manila, pero pati sa probinsya, yung mga populated provincial outskirts or outlying provinces ng Maynila, nagde-dredging na rin sila ng kanilang mga ilog. Parang annual event na ito, parang every 2 years nagde-dredge sila. Solution po ba ito talaga?
Actually, kaya po sila nagde-dredging kasi po bumababaw na po yung ating ilog. Kasi yung mga lupa na nanggagaling sa taas, naiipon na po dito sa ating downstream area. So ito nga po yung sinasabi nating depositional. Nagde-deposit po yung ating mga lupa na galing sa itaas, no, yung mga areas na kung saan wala ng mga puno, so nagkakaroon ng erosion. Kaya nangyayari po yun. So, ang pinakapunot dulo po nito talaga ay yung pagputol ng ating kagubatan. So, yung source po talaga ay yung sa taas, deforestation. So, kung mapapanatili po natin yung ating kagandahan ng ating kagubatan, may mga native tree species naman po na magandang gamitin pang reforest, ito po ay maganda nating mahihinto po yung sedimentation at eventually po hindi na po natin kailangan pa mag-dredging araw-araw or every 2 years, no, kasi malaking din po yun, investment in terms, lalo na kapag ang mga munisipyo po hindi naman po kataasan yung class, no, so kailangan pa nilang mag-invest na yung mga pagkakagastusan nito ay pwede na natin maibigay sa ibang mga communities natin dun sa lugar, no? So yun po talaga yung pinaka-source. Kailangan po palagi ma-identify natin ang root cause para po mas ma-address natin. Maganda rin naman po yung ganung ginagawa, pero dapat meron din initiative sa taas at the same time po din sa baba.
Okay. Thank you, Doc. Doc, may comment mula kay Myron Talosig. Yung mga ipugaw daw sa Cordillera, they practice muyong. So I suppose parang sinasabi niya, baka daw galing sa mga taga-Cordillera, sa mga ipugaw, yung muyong. Sana may mag-react para padala ng comment nila.
Ma-confirm po natin wala sa kanila.
Okay. Doc, mukhang nasagot na natin ng halos lahat ng mga tanong. Yung tanong ko naman, Doc, bilang siguro kung wala nang magiging tanong pang wakas, Doc, ano ang kinabukasan ng ating mga ilog? Pwede bang magbigay kayo ng mensahe tungkol doon? Dapat bang mag-alala, panonood natin o ang mga followers natin sa kalagayan, kondisyon ng mga ilog, hindi lamang siguro sa Cordillera, kung hindi saan pa man sa Pilipinas?
Maganda pong tanong, May mga ilog naman po tayo, to be honest, no? May mga napuntahan naman po kami ilog mula sa Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao na maganda pa rin naman po. Maayos naman po, napapanatili pa rin po yung kumbaga yung kalidad ng tubig po. So, I think there's still hope for the river systems in the Philippines. Malaki po pang pag-asa. Although malaking pag-asa pa, pero nangangailangan pa rin po ito talaga ng malaking tulong mula sa atin, sa bawat isang Pilipino na maliit na bagay man o na pagtapon ng balat ng candy or kung ano pa man, malaking bagay na rin po ito para sa ating sa mga ilog natin at mga sapa. So, malaki po ang nakikita naming hope o future pa ng ating river system, no. Kailangan lang talaga nating pagtulungan, protektahan at alagaan ang ating mga ilog, ano. Nababalewala lang po kasi hindi po siya ang mga hayop po kasi ng mga ilog ay hindi katulad ng mga hayop o isda na nasa coral reefs na napaka-colorful na pwede mo masabing ay iconic or something, no? So, hindi sila ganun kaganda pero makikita mo na yung services or ecosystem services ng naibibigay ng ilog in terms of source of water, market goods like yung food, yung ginagamit sa cordillera, no? Yung mga crabs, yung mga snails. So malaking bagay po ito. So kailangan natin talagang protektahan, pangalagaan at simulan na bigyang pansin at magkaroon na ng programang pangkahalatahan na mula sa Luzon hanggang sa Mindanao tungkol sa pagprotekta at pag-restore ng ating mga river systems. Ano po?
Okay. Doc, maraming salamat sa pagsagot sa aming mga tanong. Ngayon, Doc, I'd like to turn over the virtual floor to Ms. Cora para sa huling pananalita. Thank you, Doc. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat sa iyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Magbanwa. Ako ba'y nakikita at nakirinig na? Maraming salamat, Francis. Napakarami ng iyong binahagi dito sa iyong panayam. Ako mismo, I gained a better understanding of rivers, as I am sure our audience did, about geomorphology, the continuum, mossy forest, the effects of human activities, the endemic and introduced fishes, at nakakatuwa na meron pang culinary notes about cooking with rice beer or tapoy. At maraming salamat sa iyong pagpapaunlak sa mga tanong na kung ano-ano ang direksyon, at ang mga sagot na tunay namang malilinaw na tugon. Nakakatuwa. Lalo naman dahil mahalaga sa Muscat ang kapaligiran. Ang sabi nga, ang kapaligiran doon nakatira, ang katutubo. Ang katutubo ang gumagawa ng aming nasa koleksyon, mga basket, mga hinabi. Kung wawala yun ay tila magkakagulo yung relasyon na yun. So Muscat is very mindful of the environment and the human dynamics that impact the environment. As we stated earlier in our introduction, Muscat respects the bonds between humans and their environment and the balance that must be maintained between them. Your lecture also set up the stage for next month's talk by Dr. Norma Respicio, who will give an account of the traps used to capture fish, eels, shrimps, crabs in the rivers of northern Luzon, the waterways you spoke of. Maraming salamat. Sa uulitin sana. Meanwhile, Muscat continues to delight in and celebrate Philippine culture. Please go to our Facebook page for announcements and follow and like us on our new Instagram account, Muscat IG, and our usual YouTube and Spotify. Meanwhile, keep safe and well and dry kung umuulan pa. And till soon, till next month, magandang hapon sa inyong lahat.